Just want to say thank you to everyone for attending tonight, and thank you so much to our co-hosts of the event tonight, the Ossining Public Library. Shout out to James Trapasso, and to the Briarcliff Public Library. Thank you to Donna for your help in setting up this event. So to kick off our night, we're going to be hearing from the Deputy Mayor of the Village of Briarcliff, who's joining us on election night. So thanks, Peter, for joining us, and please help us kick off our event.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. The Village of Briarcliff Manor is so pleased to be joining with the town and the Village of Ossining, Sustainable Westchester, to bring EnergySmart homes to our community. Thanks tonight to Ossining and Briarcliff Manor Public Libraries for sponsoring tonight's event, and to Briarcliff Sustainability and Green Ossining for all of their ongoing efforts in this area. For those of you listening at home or watching this on Facebook, EnergySmart Homes helps educate residents about cleaner green energy in homes, the benefits of reducing carbon footprint, improving insulation, enjoying a more comfortable home. Through this partnership, residents have access to vetted vendors and experts and can receive discounted pricing on smart energy home improvements. You'll discover customized clean heating and cooling solutions for your home, understand how improved efficiency can save you money and energy, and learn about financial incentives and rebates offered by NYSERDA and Con Ed. For those of you who don't know, NYSERDA is New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and they also offer a completely free energy assessment of your home. They use a little handheld tool. They show you how leaky your windows are. It's really annoying, for example, or how much you can save by modernizing your water heater. It's a program I went through myself. I've lived here in Briarcliff Manor for 27 years, all the time in the same house, a house that was originally built in 1928. So this year it's 93 years old. Without these kinds of leaps in environmentally friendly technology, I'd still be using the coal-fired furnace that took up most of the space in my basement when I first moved into the house. It had been converted to oil, but it was still a bit of a clunker. Last year, we finally decided, just about 25 years too late, to re-insulate the entire attic with spray foam. The money we spent on that project was offset by the tremendous wardrobe savings when we stopped buying sweaters just to wear to bed. I wish this program had been in place way sooner. I encourage all residents to take advantage of the experts that are now available to help you pick the best equipment, get maximum rebates and tax incentives, and improve the value and coziness of your home. Tonight, we'll hear from many of the contractors that are featured in this program, all of which have been carefully screened, all of whom are offering discounted fees under this program. Tomorrow, fittingly, is St. Patrick's Day, which means tonight may be the ideal night to start going green.
Oh, how sweet is that, Peter? I love it.
So sweet, so sweet.
Great. So let's keep with our going green theme. I'm going to share some slides right now, and we will get right into the PowerPoint. So thanks again, Peter, for joining us and for kicking off the event.
You're welcome.
Okay. And as people are coming on to the Zoom, just a reminder, if you could stay muted as we are talking. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will answer them as we move through the slides. So we're going to be talking about EnergySmart homes, as Peter so beautifully described. And to kick us off, though, Susie Ross from Green Ossining is going to give us some context around how much carbon emissions are really coming from these three municipalities of Ossining Town and Village and Briarcliff. We're going to hear some brief presentations by our contractors. We're going to listen to two little mini presentations about easy signups, easy things you can do in your home to lower your utility bill right away with grid rewards and community solar. And then we're going to do some breakout rooms. So if you have specific questions for contractors or for any other people, you can filter yourself into a breakout room and have a little conversation there. And we'll only do one round of breakout rooms, but certainly feel free to hop around from breakout room to breakout room. So just a little bit of information about Sustainable Westchester. We are a nonprofit consortium of Westchester governments, and it's our goal to enable sustainability programming to help ensure a better future for our communities. And Sustainable Westchester is a member organization. We're comprised of our member municipalities. Almost every single municipality in the county is a member, including Westchester County itself. And we have a whole suite of programs. So tonight we're going to touch on a couple of them, mostly focused on EnergySmart homes, but we will be talking about community solar and grid rewards. If you're looking for information about purchasing an electric vehicle, Westchester Power, or zero waste options for your home, feel free to take a look at the Sustainable Westchester website. And a little bit of good news for each person that's on the call, we will be donating one tree to One Tree Planted, who plant a tree in a national park. So I'm not sure how many people are on the call right now. I think more than 30. So 30 new trees going to the U.S. Forest Service. Not bad. So without further delay, let me introduce the fabulous Susie Ross from Green Ossining, who will be talking about the Cure 100 Carbon Tracker.
Thank you, Lauren. You hear me?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so thanks everybody for being with us tonight. I'm only going to take about 5 minutes. On behalf of Green Ossining, we're really excited to be bringing residents of both villages of Briarcliff and Ossining and the town of Ossining a tool that really speaks to your and your household's personal carbon emissions, and it's called the Cure 100 Carbon Tracker. I'm only going to be speaking briefly about it here tonight, but it's such a complement to the EnergySmart Homes program. So before I dive into the nuts and bolts of this free tool that we're making available to our community, I want to quickly explain some of the acronyms. Thank you, Lauren. We'll stick on this slide for a moment. Ossining 100 is a chapter which consists of a team of Green Ossining members, and it's dedicated to educating and showing our community how to reduce carbon emissions through high impact actions. The Ossining 100 chapter is one of a growing number of chapters in a consortium called Cure 100. And that stands for Communities United to Reduce Emissions by 100%. The concept of Cure 100 was created by some really smart friends of ours up in Croton, whose mission through their chapter, the Croton 100 chapter, is to advocate, educate, and create campaigns that get community members to better understand their carbon footprint. And they do that through providing them with educational opportunities and a variety of other things. And some of them are within this carbon tracker. This whole idea of reducing carbon emissions can all be yours through the Cure 100 Carbon Tracker app. Next slide, please. Now, the importance of launching this Carbon Tracker app right now is really because the time is right. And there are 3 reasons that the time is right. The first one is the UN panel on climate change warned in 2018 that we needed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius to make our adaptation to a warming planet less difficult. And the main driver of a warming planet comes from human-caused use of fossil fuels. Secondly, in 2019, New York State passed what is perhaps the most aggressive climate legislation in the country with the passing of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And that calls for a cut in carbon emissions by 40% by 2030 and net zero by 2040, as well as a move to 100% carbon-free electricity by 2040. And the last reason that we wanted to launch this Carbon Tracker app was to coincide with the launch of EnergySmart Homes here. So we're excited to be working on a 3rd major program collaboration with Sustainable Westchester that will once again focus on reducing fossil fuel usage. Next slide, please. So for a matter of reference, I'd like you to keep in mind that currently the global carbon footprint estimate is about 7 tons on average per person annually. In Westchester County, however, that per person estimate is about 21 tons annually, which is 3 times the global average. By 2050, various estimates have suggested that our ambition should be to shrink our personal carbon footprint to between 1 and 1.5 tons. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's talk about what changes we can make in a very gradual way to help us get there. And we know that Ossining 100 can help. Next slide. So the goal of Ossining 100 is extremely simple. We're seeking to reduce our emissions as a community from its baseline amount in 2020 to 0 by 2040, in keeping with the urging of the United Nations. So we will reduce our carbon emissions by 5% a year until we get to 0 by 2040. In other words, we're going to take 20 steps down the carbon ladder to achieve net zero in 2040. So it's all about carbon reductions. Next slide, thanks. So with the help of the carbon tracker, we can quantify community-wide emissions, emissions by household, individual emissions, emissions by sectors such as transportation and heating, diet choices and waste, and finally, carbon reductions. As well, the tracker provides directional guidance for those step downs. So here's where you go. I'll put the location in the chat in a moment. If you can go to the next slide. So if you go to the Green Ossining website, which is www.greenossining.org, you'll see the carbon tracker in the menu bar. And before you get started, you'll be given some information about things you'll want to have on hand, so you can set up your personal household profile in a very efficient way. All in all, the setup should take about 45 minutes. Next slide. In your profile, you'll go through a series of prompts that are very user-friendly and should be relatively easy to anyone to answer, as long as you have the information on hand. And once completed, you'll get an overview of your carbon footprint by the various sectors and how that compares to others. Drilling into each sector, you'll be offered guidance on options to consider in order to make those step downs. Now, the following is a high-level view that's going to show you the types of information the carbon tracker may offer to an average individual, so you can better understand the suggested step downs from a quantifiable perspective. So as you can see, there's a quantifiable difference with transportation. If your child rides a fossil fuel school bus, and most do in Westchester County, and you drive an SUV, making different choices will lower your carbon footprint, substantially. Electricity choices have a tremendous impact. And by recycling, you can see we can reduce our impacts to under about a half a ton. And the type of airline travel you choose makes a difference. So here's one, where this year, I keep saying this, but we're all winning. And looking at diet, you can see how adjustments in your diet also have an impact. And finally, let's talk about heating, and one of the main reasons why we are partnering in the launching of EnergySmart Home and the EnergySmart Homes program. As you can see, oil is the least efficient way of heating your home, and the average home has nearly 6 tons of carbon impact from an oil furnace. Natural gas burns cleaner, but leakage actually nullifies its environmental benefit. And as you can see, stepping down to heat pumps, which is part of this EnergySmart Homes program, reduces emissions tremendously, and it gets homes off of fossil fuel and reduces carbon emissions. So with these step downs, we hope we have convinced you that there are things that we can all do to reduce our carbon impact. And some are simple in our daily life, and others may be more opportunistic, like getting a new car or a new furnace. So let's take a quick look at what our our CO2 equivalent emissions are as a community annually. So you can see transportation is the single largest driver, followed by heating. Perhaps an easier way to look at this is when you can see, you can see the big hitters a little bit more clearly here. And looking at our villages, the next one, please. You can see that gas and fuel usage, as well as carbon emission equivalents, compared to both Westchester and the total US. Now, this chart is not intended to show who may be worse or who may be better off comparatively, but it should show you that we all have work to do if we're to get to that 1 to 1.5 tons per person. Its intention is really to hopefully get you to be curious about determining where you fall in the carbon tracker. So join us in learning more. We want to help. I'd like to quickly introduce the Ossining 100 executive team and invite you to join us for our online office hours, which through March right now are Wednesdays from 6 to 7 and Saturdays from 2:30 to 3:30 through March. And again, more information can be found at greenossining.org. I will put the link to the carbon tracker in the app. We did have an open house last evening. There may be others that we will be planning relatively soon. We do have Earth Week coming up, so we'll have some information out there for people to hopefully take advantage of one of our open houses. And thank you, Lauren.
Thanks, Susie. Love the Ossining 100 carbon tracker. Such a great tool that we have in our community. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit. Tonight, we're going to be shifting a lot of gears. So I hope you feel like it's not too much information, and certainly it's a little taste of everything. And if you find that you need help with any of the concepts that we go over tonight, certainly feel free to reach out to me at Sustainable Westchester or to any of the partner contractors. So a little bit about how we got here. EnergySmart Homes Ossining Briarcliff is a program of Sustainable Westchester sponsored by funding from NYSERDA. And the way that this program developed is Sustainable Westchester issued an RFI, and the municipalities of Ossining and Briarcliff responded and won to have a community campaign. So here we are now implementing that community campaign about clean heating, cooling, and energy efficiency. We're part of a statewide network of community campaigns that are helping to educate their neighbors about these opportunities. So if you have a friend that lives in upstate New York or another house somewhere else in the state, you too can tap into some of the rebates and incentives that we're mentioning tonight. So just to be clear, the EnergySmart Homes is helping people transition away from fossil fuel usage in their home. We do have residential and commercial solutions, and you can call us anytime for assistance over the phone, email us. We respond at crazy hours of the day, and we're here to help. We also have a list of partner contractors, so you'll be hearing from our contractors tonight. Our partner contractors applied to be part of this program. They responded through an RFP that was issued by Sustainable Westchester, and all the contractors that you'll be hearing from tonight are certified and partner contractors also with NYSERDA and Con Edison. And they were also interviewed and selected by your local EnergySmart Homes volunteer committee. So let's see, as Susie mentioned, one of the biggest hitters of carbon emissions is our home energy usage, specifically space heating and cooling. So almost 75% of the energy used in a typical New York State home is for heating and cooling. So by addressing energy efficiency and clean heating and cooling concerns, we can really get to the root of this problem. So tonight we're going to be talking about the 4 different technologies that we think are good ideas for people to implement in their home. You'll be hearing from different contractors. So, but let me just say, out of these 4 solutions, you may find that different ones work for you. For example, if your house is leaky or drafty or really expensive to heat and cool, you may benefit by getting started with a home energy assessment. If you're really getting ready to change out the way you heat and cool your house, perhaps an air source or a ground source heat pump is right for you. And, you know, we are also advertising heat pump hot water heaters, which are a great solution and have to be replaced more frequently. About every 10 years, people have to replace their hot water heater. So perhaps this is on your to-do list sooner rather than one of these other items on the list. So you'll be hearing from our 6 contractors. The contractors provide different solutions. So you may call a couple of these contractors to schedule a site visit or a home energy assessment, or you may just call one. It's up to you. And just to kind of describe who's doing what, which hopefully will be clear through the slides, but we've got Energy Management Solutions and Healthy Home providing home energy efficiency information. Healthy Home also does heat pumps. Phoenix Mechanical will be talking about air source heat pumps, as will Bell. And then we have 3 providers of ground source heat pumps, Bell, Geothermal Works, and Dandelion. So let's get started with home energy efficiency. Most people on the call said that they were most interested in that anyway. I'm not sure if Mark is on the line. Mark, if you're here, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, how is that?
Perfect. Okay, great. So we're going to be hearing from Mark Graham from Energy Management Solutions. You've got like 4-ish minutes to move through the slides and tell us about what's included with a home energy assessment.
All right, I'll talk like at the end of the drug advertisements. Thank you for inviting us again with our colleagues who will be speaking later. Before we go through the slides, I just want to say a minute or two. The essence of what we're doing is stopping waste, which is always the first thing when one is going to do any of these things. New machinery, new mechanics, you want to stop the waste first. And as Lauren said, the heating and cooling is a huge loss and usage in houses. We focus on the thermal boundary, which is made up of 2 parts. One part, the word we always throw around, is insulation, fiberglass. Issue with fiberglass, air flows right through fiberglass. So there's the other half of a thermal boundary. We have to do air sealing. The 2 of them together are like your 2-layer ski jacket. You have the polar fleece and you have the nylon layer over it. There's your 2 layers of an ideal thermal boundary. So not only is there fiberglass insulation, let's say we're talking about fiberglass or cellulose, we also need to air seal. Lauren also said the word draft. A draft implies airflow. Really, in essence, has nothing to do with insulation. It's all airflow. So this slide shows a multiple of typical areas where warm air, we'll talk about hot air in the winter, it's the easiest to talk about. Hot air expands, rises, and leaves the house at many different points. And our goal is to air seal that entire top of the plane of the house to keep the heat in your house. In the summer, it works the reverse. Heat is always trying to go toward cold. So in the summer, the hot in the attic is trying to get into your house. In the winter, the heat in your house is trying to get out. So it works both summer and winter. So, okay, you can go to the next slide. So here's an example of a gorgeous, typical attic. A combination of some flooring and some open area, which is quite typical for attics. We air seal under the flooring, which I can get into in the breakout rooms, the details of that. We've air sealed the entire plane where it's open. And then we add, in the right photo there, that's cellulose, which is recycled cardboard treated with boric acid. Primary reason for the boric acid treatment is it's a very strong fire retardant, which I've heard is a good thing. So you can go to the next slide. Another obvious point of airflow and air loss is are the attic hatches, the pull down stairs, whatever the access is into the attic. And that box on the left, that shiny upside down box, is essentially commercial roofing foam board. Any flat roof building you see, that commercial roofing foam board insulation is underneath the waterproof membrane. It's called polyisocyanurate, not to be impressive or anything. And we build a box custom sized over those stairs and have a soft gasket around it. It's about 3 or 4 pounds, very easy for anyone to move. And it makes a huge difference, just that one point. Also, another point of air loss are hi-hats, recessed lighting, recessed cans. They also give the air away, even though they give nice light. So we always have to deal with them from up above as well. On the right side is a combination of a nice finished attic, combination of a walkway, because the mechanical people have to get to the air handlers and the HVAC equipment. And the cellulose is over in the other open areas. And so the entire attic is an unbroken thermal boundary. That's the goal, unbroken. It's like a boat with 10 leaks in. If you fix 6 of them, what's ultimately going to happen? So the ideal is to seal all the leaks, if we can possibly do that. Walls, the gent on the left there has a little hole in the wall and he's blowing cellulose into the wall. That is the way we insulate walls, and also garage ceilings. Garage ceilings are very common areas where the living space above, we hear the floors are cold, because garage ceilings were usually rather poorly insulated. On the right side is some basement treatment with insulation. We call that InsoFast. So people can put sheetrock on top of that insulation product you see on the right. Okay, next slide. And NYSERDA has many, too many to discuss right at this point, many different programs to help folks of all different income levels, which we can dig into a little more detailed level in the breakout room if anyone wishes.
Sure,
Right.
and I just want to interrupt you, Mark, for a second, that these incentives, these income guidelines for what programs could give higher incentives are increased right now due to COVID-19. So those rates are only kind of lasting until the summer, as far as we know. So if you happen to fall under one of these income guidelines, it would be better to take advantage of it in the now or coming months before the summer sets in and these limits expire. And this is a great program, 50% of a discount up to $5,000.
Yes. One of the few positives that was a side effect of COVID. Yes, and yeah, geez, a lot of information right here. They're just, we can get into this in the breakout. There are many different programs to support renters and owners of all different income levels. So,
Yep.
okay, I mean, that's my spiel for 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, and just a quick shout out for the Empower program. This is great for people that are receiving SNAP or HEAP assistance. This could be used for apartment dwellers. So if you know someone that's suffering from an energy burden, they may be able to tap into $10,000 worth of free home energy upgrades. And that's for apartment or homeowners. Okay, so moving on to our next contractor, we're now going to hear from Lexi at Healthy Home about home energy efficiency and air source heat pumps.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it. So I'm going to try and keep this quick. I do see a question in the chat from Nora. We can talk about cost of the energy assessment in our breakout rooms. So essentially what Healthy Home does along with energy management solutions is we want to evaluate your house and let you know what you could do to make the home more energy efficient. And like Mark said, reduce the waste. So you may notice a couple of these images, holes in your ducts, a rim joist or the area in your basement where like the top of your house meets the bottom of your house. Looks dirty and old, and you're kind of saying, what do I do here? What do I do with this? The recessed lights that Mark was discussing, there's an image of them there. And our goal is to treat your house as a system. Next slide. So again, this looks similar to I think Mark showed like the top half of this, but we really want to evaluate where all the air leakage is coming from. So it can be leaving out of the attic, and Mark shows some great examples of how we would address that, but around windows and doors. So we want to get first an understanding of where your home currently is at, and we do that with testing. Our evaluation is about 2 to 3 hours with the whole home testing. We then return to our office, do an energy model, and we return to the home within 5 to 7 business days to review our solution. We're going to review what's going on in the house, where are the leaks happening, what can you do to improve these leaks, and also provide you return on investment information like that to really help you understand what you can do and what the actionable steps are. Similar to like what Susie was saying, taking those steps down, we're going to help you provide information on what you could do to reduce your heating and cooling load and get your house ready for new equipment when that time does come. Next slide. So like I mentioned, this is just a few pictures of things like the blower door test to measure that home's air leakage, really understand how much uncontrolled air is just leaving the house. We do combustion safety and efficiency testing. We do a thorough interior and exterior evaluation of the home, doing infrared scanning as well, so we can really look at the areas of where the air leakage is coming from, see how well insulation is performing in walls and things like that. And we also do indoor air quality sampling, because when we're talking about reducing the uncontrolled air leakage, we're also kind of reducing the amount of fresh air. So we want to be very cognizant of the impact that can have on the home's indoor air quality moving forward. Next slide. So this is kind of just a slide summarizing Healthy Home also installs air source heat pumps, both ducted and ductless systems. So once you really do get that load down, you understand where your home is at, you've maybe taken some measures to reduce the amount of air leakage that's happening and get that heating and cooling load down, you get your house ready for these heat pumps. So Healthy Home does install those as well. This is just a quick summary you'll see on the left-hand side, those radiators. These are kind of the more typical combustion fired equipment radiators. So to stop using those, you want to add some insulation, seal up the air leakage. The image in the middle above is of an attic that's encapsulated with spray foam, really reducing the air leakage. And then by doing those measures, it's really creating your home, a good situation in your home to get them ready for whether it be air source heat pumps or geothermal if you're a good fit for that. And I'm sure Rob or Corey or anyone else from Dandelion, Geothermal Works, or Keith at Bell is happy to help you with that as well. I think that's that. That's our team, and any questions, I'll be happy to talk to you in the breakout room.
Thank you, Lexi. Okay, and following up, we're going to hear from Larry now at Phoenix Mechanical talking about air source heat pumps. Larry, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hey, yep, I can hear you.
Okay. My name is Larry Nisman from Phoenix Mechanical. We're a full-service heating, cooling, air conditioning, and plumbing company. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk to you about air source heat pumps. So there's two types of heat pumps that we'll talk about today. I'm going to talk about air source heat pumps. The other type is ground source, which is geothermal. And we can talk about the differences between those. So I'll talk about air source heat pumps. First off, air source heat pumps are air conditioning also. So it does air conditioning as well as heating in all weather conditions. So these heat pumps are designed to heat in sub-zero conditions. And they're also very efficient air conditioning units. So if you don't have air conditioning in your house and you want air conditioning in your house, air source heat pumps are a great way to go. And especially now, because with Con Edison rebates, it essentially cuts the cost of the project in half. So the timing for this couldn't be better. There's two types of air source heat pumps generally. There's wall-mounted units, ductless units. You may have heard of those. And pictured here are two different styles of ductless. They could be a console floor mount that goes lower down towards the floor, more like a radiator. And there's high wall mounts pictured on the other screen, on the other side. They do exactly the same thing. They're just different styles for different applications. Next slide, please. There are other heat pumps that can be hidden. These are floor standing concealed heat pumps. So they do the same thing that you just saw in the pictures of the wall mounted ones, except these you could hide so you don't see them. And each one of these represents a zone. So each room, bedroom, living room that has a wall mounted unit can be individually temperature controlled. So it allows you a lot of flexibility in different temperatures throughout your house. So if one person likes it colder and one person likes it warmer, you have really complete control over how you heat and cool your house. Next slide, please. The other style outside of wall mounts or concealed units would be a traditional ducted system. This can be retrofit into your existing ducted system. So if you have air conditioning systems now that are old and you're ready to swap them out for something new, you could put in these high efficiency heat pumps and have a very efficient air conditioning system as well as a very efficient heating system with no combustion. So you don't need a chimney, you don't need oil, you don't need gas. And the best part is retrofitting it like this amounts to half the cost you would normally pay, which really works out to less than you would pay for just plain old air conditioning. So it's really a win-win situation. So these can be a primary heat source for all houses. This is what the outside portion of the system looks like. So I showed you the inside portions. The outside, you have a heat pump, compressor, what have you. The one on the left-hand side, the double fan, that's typically associated with a ducted system. And the one on the right is a ductless system. The ductless system, you can pair up to 4 inside units paired up with the outside unit. And with the ducted system, it's typically a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 outside unit, 1 inside unit. Both units are on a stand. They have to be at least 12 inches above snow line so snow doesn't touch the bottom of the unit because it can damage the unit. So that's why they're on stands. Both of these units are super quiet. So you will not hear these units inside your house for sure. And even if you're sitting outside on your patio or deck, you won't hear the units either. These are just some pictures of different ways to mount the units. They can be mounted against the side of your house or again, stand on a driveway. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, thanks. And then the refrigerant lines, primarily for the ducted systems, when you have multiple refrigerant lines going to the inside units, they'll be covered with what we call line hide. It's a nice plastic, heavy duty plastic material that covers the refrigerant line. And we try and blend it into the facade of your house as best as possible and make it as discreet as possible, running it on the back of the house, the side of the house. And this is just a sample of what the line looks like on the outside of the house when it's finished. Next slide, please. Okay, what do we got here? So the rebates, the criteria to be eligible for the Con Edison rebate, we need to install a system that meets 90% of the home's heating needs. Whether or not you actually use it for heating, Con Ed doesn't care. I mean, they may care. They'd like you to do it, but it's not a requirement and you don't have to disengage your existing system. However, once you start using it, I think you'll find that the heat pump is superior to oil, gas, propane, what have you. The equipment must be on an approved list of equipment to verify its efficiency. As I mentioned, the system can be ductless, ducted, or a combination thereof. You can have a ducted system in the attic for the second floor and a wall mount on the first floor. We have to conduct a manual J load calculation to submit to Con Edison that shows how many BTUs of heating and cooling you need for your house. And then below that represents what the rebate is. So for every 10,000 BTUs of heat we install at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, so they're measuring how much heat you get when it's 5 degrees outside. It's $2,000 for every 10,000 BTUs of heat. And that that generally represents a rebate that ranges from $10,000 to $14,000 for a typical home, approximately 2,500 square feet. And as I mentioned, the ductless rebate is approximately 50% the cost of the job. Even a retrofit for a ducted system works out that way. If you have no ductwork and we have to install ductwork for you, it doesn't represent a 50% rebate. And this is eligible now. And the nice thing is the contractor waits for the rebate. So if your job was $20,000, you'd pay the contractor $10,000, and the other $10,000 would be sent to the contractor from Con Edison directly. So that's it for air source heat pumps for me.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, and Larry will be in the air source heat pump breakout room as well. So I'd like to hear from the different contractors. There is some overlap about the technologies, but if you're new to this, I think it's kind of helpful to hear it a couple different ways and a few different times. So now we're going to hear from Keith Bell, the owner of Bell Heating and Cooling. He is going to introduce heat pumps, all types of heat pumps to us.
Thank you, Lauren. My name is Keith Bell, owner of Bell Heating and Air Conditioning. We're a full service heating and air conditioning company. We've been servicing Westchester for 41 years now. So basically, there's our team, there's our place. Our office is in Mahopac, New York. Most of our work is in Westchester. And we've been working on heat pumps since 1980. Like we spoke before, there's a couple different types of systems. There's a ductless heat pump, there's a ducted heat pump, and also a hot water heater. You can use the heat pump technology to do your hot water heater. I just want to say, you know, why do we keep talking about heat pumps? What does a heat pump do? Well, actually, what a heat pump does, oddly enough, is pumps heat. And the way it does that, it takes it'll take $1 of electricity, and it'll pump $2 to $3 to $5 of heat either into or out of your house. So a good way to look at it is an air conditioning unit is a heat pump, and what it does, it pumps the heat from inside of your house to outside of your house to make it cooler in the house, and it rejects the heat out into the yard. So the two different main sources, an air source heat pump and a ground source heat pump. An air source heat pump has to reject that heat into a 90-degree air outside in the summer. And in the wintertime, basically you reverse that flow. So now you're blowing hot air inside the house and you're pulling heat from outside to bring it into your house. And, you know, even though people say, oh, it's electric heat, it's electric powered, but it's multiplied by how much heat you're getting from outside. It uses the refrigeration cycle to do that. So there's ground source and there's air source. And the advantage for the ground source is it doesn't have an outside air temperature to go against. In the summertime, it's rejecting that heat to nice 50-degree ground. And in the wintertime, it's actually pulling heat out of the 50-degree ground. So the geothermal is more efficient than the air source. Next slide. So here's basically a typical ducted system. If someone has a furnace now, a gas or oil furnace in the basement, you can fairly easy retrofit what you have with an air source or a geothermal system. You do have to be very careful about how big your ducts are and how many, how much you can distribute to the house. And we basically talking about the rebates. The Mitsubishi units will give you a large rebate. The Con Ed rebate for the air source was $2,000 per 10,000 BTUs of heat. The geothermal rebate is $2,800 per 10,000 rebate. Plus you get the federal tax credit, which is 26% now. Next slide. Heat pump hot water heater essentially uses the same technology. It's twice as efficient as a standard electric hot water heater. So what it does is it takes the heat out of your basement, helps you dehumidify the basement in the summertime, and makes it a little colder in the winter. So you have to be careful where you put it at some point. Next slide. So the heat pump hot water heater, basically, like I said, gives you twice as efficient standard electric heat pump. Yes, certain areas you have to be careful of. If it has a little tiny room or very cold area, you're not necessarily a good place for your heat pump hot water heater.
Do you want to just mention the cost?
Oh yeah, well, typically a heat pump hot water heater is somewhere around between $2,500 and $3,500, and you get a Con Ed rebate. I think I'm not sure. I think it's $400 for the $1,000. I'm sorry. So yeah, so it's when you're all said and done, it's not much more than a regular electric hot water heater, and it'll provide you be twice as efficient for the next 10, 15 years. So here's a little sketch of the ground source heat pump. So instead of you rejecting the heat out in the yard, the pipes go down into the ground, and they, like I said, they suck heat out of in the winter, and they reject heat in the summer. Two major types of heat pumps. There's water to air and there's water to water. So a water to air is a picture on the right here. That's a typical packaged geothermal system. The two black pipes and the pumps there go out to the yard, and the unit provides hot and cold air, just like your furnace does in your basement. Water to water provides hot water and cold water, and it's typically used when you want to try to distribute heat with radiant floor heating or a big, large house with multiple zones. Ductwork, yeah. So here's a little schematic of how it works. This is water to air. It provides hot air, cold air, and there's a thing called the de-superheater operation. So when the units are running in the summertime, they're basically giving you free hot water, and because you're rejecting that heat anyway into the ground. And in the wintertime, it takes about a 3 to 5% off your capacity, but it helps you make your hot water all year long. This is a picture of a horizontal loop. These are, instead of going vertical with your wells, these are basically slinky loops, they call them. They got to be buried 10 to 15 feet below the grade, and you need a hole the size of your house at least without any rocks. So I don't think there's not too many places in Westchester you can do that. This one was in Bedford Hills. That was 14 years ago. Here's an example of a geothermal. It's a split system. So these 3 boxes on the ground are just like you'd have with your air conditioning condenser in your yard. And the black pipes go out to the ground. And then there's copper pipes that go from these units to your air handlers in the house. Typically, this is when you have an air handler in the attic and you have the geothermal units in the basement.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, yeah, you're about $20,000 to $25,000 for a typical system after your rebates. And when you start, essentially geothermal costs about a little more than twice as much as a regular standard system. But with a 26% federal tax credit and the Con Ed rebates, it becomes a no-brainer, really. So we're basically giving up some incentives to free duct leak tests with the duct cleaning, and if you buy a geo or air source heat pump, high efficiency will give you air purification system. So,
okay.
Thank you, and I will see you in the breakout rooms if you have any questions. Thank you very much, Lauren.
Thanks, Keith. Okay, we're going to hear about a different type of geothermal now. Rob is on the line to talk about DX geothermal. And Rob, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren, for setting this up. My name is Rob Foyer. I'm the owner of Geothermal Works. We have been in Westchester County for going on 17 years, focusing and doing DX geothermal. DX geothermal is copper and refrigerant as opposed to plastic and polyglycol. The difference is that we drill shallower holes. They're only 100-foot deep max. They're drilled on a 30-degree diagonal. So when we drill these holes, they're in a 5-foot diameter circle, taking up a much smaller footprint in your yard than other forms of geothermal. So when you think, does my house qualify and can I actually do geothermal? We're going to be in a 5-foot diameter circle. If your house is more than 3,800 square feet, it ends up being about 5 foot wide and about 20 feet long. There are 1 to 2 holes drilled per ton. And we don't really show pictures of the 12-ton, 24,000-pound drill rig that shows up on your yard to make these holes. It's a track rig. If you've ever seen a drill rig drilling on what's called heavy and highway, it's the same drill rig. So why do geothermal and why do it now? I mean, I'm super happy that HeatSmart is around and we're looking at what we can do in the county. Like Keith just mentioned, 26% of the project is going to be paid for by the federal government. And the $2,850 paid for by Con Ed as an incentive for every 10,000 BTUs. When you look at how much the government is paying on homes, about 3,000 square feet and up, more than 50% of the project is paid for by our government. So the fact that you're not allowed to do oil to gas conversions anymore in the county, one of Con Ed's views in the way that they approach this was to try and incentivize everybody to put in heat pumps if they needed to upgrade or have new equipment. Next slide. Okay, what we do. We've installed hundreds of these systems throughout the county. We need to upgrade that slide because it's now 17 years. We look at homes because every home is unique. There used to be a take it or leave it, install geothermal or don't. Right now, we're looking at hybrid homes a little differently because one of the things you need to do to qualify for the incentive is 90% of your house needs to be covered. So 90% of your heat load needs to be covered. I just want to stop a moment and talk about heat gain, heat loss. Every contractor looking at your house is going to figure out what the heat gain, heat loss is on your house. They may do a preliminary heat gain, heat loss to give you an estimate. And once you decide to go forward to do a more detailed analysis, but they need to know how much heat leaves your home in winter and how much heat comes into your house in summer. So they're going to look at fireplaces. Your fireplace in your house, if it's wood burning, loses 9,000 to 12,000 BTUs of heat an hour. That's where the energy assessments and looking at, the healthy homes of the world come in and say, hey, you need to retrofit your fireplace. Your walls aren't insulated. Your attic is leaky, etc. For every dollar, and we did a 3-year study, for every dollar you spend on your home, trying to foam insulate that home and make it tighter and less leaky, or less drafty, the words used earlier, you will save $1 on the geothermal or heat pump installation because the size of the equipment you will need will be smaller. And for every ton you put in, you pay additional dollars. Next slide. Everyone wants to know, what is this going to cost me to install? And we got a lot of people who said, before I talk to anyone, I'd like to get a ballpark or an understanding. At the Geothermal Works website, if you go to cost, you can answer a couple of simple questions. How many square feet is your house without the basement? How many square feet is your basement? And do you or do you not have ductwork? And after answering those questions, you will be able to figure out fairly quickly. And also, how many systems are in your house? Meaning how many condensers or air handlers are in your house? If you don't have any, obviously that's another way to view this. If you don't want to do this independently, call me. I will walk you through it. I also have the calculator behind it that created this and can really give you a good ballpark of whether it is or is not economically feasible to put geothermal into your home. And in the breakout room, you can ask specifics and I'll tell you some other things to look at.
Okay.
Thank
you, Rob. Thank you very much. Perfect. Okay, we're going to hear from our last contractor now. Dandelion will also be talking about geothermal. So Corey, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Good. Okay.
Awesome. Great. Well, my name is Corey Klausman. I'm a senior energy consultant for Dandelion Energy. I've been with the company for 2.5 years now, and really exciting things are happening within the organization. So Dandelion was founded in 2016. We are a spinoff of Google. Their parent company, Alphabet, had kind of a think tank called the Moonshot Program. And so that was our inception. That's kind of where we got our start. We spun off in 2017 to become our own independent company. Google gave us our first $2.5 million. We raised roughly $35 million over 3 years, and we're featured in a lot of different news publications. More recently, very exciting news, Dandelion received a $30 million Series B funding round from Bill Gates's Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And so the idea with this series of funding is to further our expansion, our R&D efforts, to further drive down the cost of geothermal so it's more affordable, so it's more scalable, and we can reach more folks with it. Actually, can you skip this slide and the next, and one more? We covered that information, so I think we'll kind of start with, we'll finish up with this slide. So with Dandelion, we're employing a rather simplistic view towards how we install geothermal. There's lots of different applications, as we've already heard on the call tonight. What we do is we identify an area on the property where we are going to drill down roughly 350 to 450 feet deep, and we're going to put in what's called a closed loop system. So we're not pulling any water out of the ground or anything like that. We're simply running a combination of 78% water and 22% propylene glycol into the ground loop, and it's coming back up the same temperature as the ground, which in our climate zone is going to be roughly 54 to 56 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the time of year. Next slide, please. This is a picture of what a borehole will look like. It's roughly 5 inches in diameter. The piping that we're putting in is made out of high density polyethylene, which is just it's like PVC pipe, but it's less rigid. And so it actually comes in on a big spool. So when we put it into the ground, it goes in and it's just one long continuous pipe. So we don't have a bunch of connection pieces or anything like that we're really all that concerned about. And it really helps with the longevity of the system to have that be the case. Next slide, please. From there, we're going to simply bring the geothermal lines right into the basement. We're going to cut a hole in the foundation. We'll seal it up, reinforce it. Before we bury the lines, we'll go ahead and pressurize the geothermal ground loops to make sure that the integrity of that line is true. We don't want to bury the lines and have there be a leak at any of the connection points that we have. So we leave it pressurized. If it doesn't drop in pressure, we'll go ahead and bury the lines. And we do so with the expectation to really never have to go back and dig them up again. Next slide. When we're done, we bring everything back to rough grade. Now, at the very beginning of our tenure in New York, we thought that it would be a good idea for us to try and restore the landscaping to its former glory. That's okay. We thought it would be a good idea to restore the landscaping to its former glory. And it turns out that that we're just really bad at landscaping. And so what we do is we bring everything back to rough grade now. So it's flat. There's no mounds or rocks, rock clusters. There's no depressions in the ground. As you can see in this photo, we don't have any wellheads sticking up or any outdoor condensers or anything like that. This is what it would look like when we're finished, and it's ready for seed and topsoil, any sort of landscaping that would need to be done afterwards. Okay, so this is pretty much what the geothermal system would look like in your basement. On the right-hand side, you'll see it's probably going to be very similar to what your furnace looks like down there. It looks kind of deceptively large in the photo, but the dimensions are, 3 feet deep, 2.5 feet wide, and 5 feet tall. And then we've got the supply plenum up top and the return plenums that can be on either side of the system. We've got 2 water heaters directly to the right of the unit. The one directly on the right is called our de-superheater, and Keith had spoken about that. Essentially, its job, it's not powered by anything. Its sole purpose is to capture all of the excess heat and energy that's generated by the system and preheat the water in that tank to somewhere around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll get a little bit more temperature in the summertime because we're pulling that heat and humidity out of the house and we're able to capture more heat in there. But effectively, it should represent about 1/3 of the cost or reduce your water heating costs by about 1/3. On the left-hand side, you'll see that we've got a picture of our unit with the cover off. This is neat because, we partnered with Aon, which is a publicly traded U.S. manufacturer out of Oklahoma, to manufacture these systems. And we really love that partnership with Aon because they gave us a lot of flexibility in the design and the manufacturing phase. And so we have almost 100 sensors built into the geothermal ground loops, or I'm sorry, into the geothermal heat pumps. And those sensors are neat. They give us a lot of really helpful information. Just the other day, we were red flagged on our monitoring system, and it turns out that there was a high pressure scenario. And so we called the customer, and the customer said, yeah, it's really weird, out of nowhere, the system was working great. Now there's not enough heat or as much heat coming out of the system. And we asked them when the last time they changed their air filter was, and they said, what air filter? And so that was one of the ways that we were able to remedy that situation without rolling a truck, without having any scheduled visits or anything like that. And there's a lot more that we can do with that monitoring. We're just scratching the surface in research and development. Super exciting technology. And lastly, I also want to cover ballpark pricing for our systems. For an average home where you've got one AC unit outside, it's roughly 2,000 square feet to 2,500 square feet. You're probably looking at somewhere between $18,000 and $23,000 as your net cost after all of your rebates. There's financing available where we can get that down to about $140 to $160 a month, if that's something that you're interested in. If you've got more than one AC unit outside and there's a need for more geothermal heat pumps, if there's just two systems outside, you're probably looking at somewhere between $34,000 and $39,000 as a net cost. With Dandelion, or somewhere around $220 to $230 a month would be the cost for that.
Okay. All right, Corey. So if people have questions about Dandelion or geothermal, you can reach Corey in the geothermal breakout room. Sounds good? Yeah. Okay, cool. So if people are wondering now, maybe something sounded good to you, you would like to have an assessment, you'd like to have a site visit, it is up to you to contact the contractor that you choose. And Maddie has been thankfully putting them all in the chat for me as this presentation has gone along. So via the chat, you have all the contractor's information. I'll also send it out as a reminder email, and you can access it on the website. So the next step is to pick the contractor and have them come on out to your house to do that assessment. And we're here to help advise you if you need help tapping into New York State rebates and incentives. We're here to help. So if you are wondering now, okay, maybe some of these solutions sound good, but you would like to do more, there are two more programs we're going to present about quickly. Michelle Delafontaine, my coworker at Sustainable Westchester, is here to talk about demand response solutions, a program called Grid Rewards.
Thank you, Lauren. I don't want to keep with the brainer theme here, the no-brainer, right? This next slide is a solution to a problem that we all facing, that we all part of. We all know that in the heat of the summer, we have high demand for air conditioning. And this is because of what we call dirty peakers. Dirty peakers are there just for a few hours a year, just there and standby to supply the energy that we need to run these air conditioning in the peak hours of the summer. And they're spewing a lot of bad emissions, and mostly in disadvantaged communities. How are we going to solve this problem? It's next slide. By looking at what we are using in our home, this on the left side is what we call a heat map. Everything is green is okay, but in some days, and what it is a map of last year. On July 18, we had very hot days, and you see it in red. Everyone in a home, that is a profile of a load, a usage at a home. And on the right side, you see why we need to compensate for that. There's no way we can bring that down into the grid, we need these standby machines, as we call dirty peakers, to make up for that load demand. And in order to solve that, well, we have ways of doing. Next slide. One is to participate into a demand response program. As a no-brainer, again, just sign up to this grid rewards program, as we called it. It is grid rewards. Reward means you earn cash by doing very simple things like raising the thermostat during the summer when it's hot and when you've been told to do so. And you get cash at the end of the season. There are very few events that need to participate to, but you make reservation as soon as possible. There's an April 1st deadline. You can still do that until the end of May, but I would suggest as soon as possible that you sign up to this wonderful program. Next slide. And this brings you an application. I found the carbon tracker fantastic. This is the complement. This lets you see what you can do in order to reduce your electricity usage by doing simple things. You can do a lot of things. You can buy these home connect machines that are Wi-Fi connected, and that lets you access from remote your dishwasher or your washing machines. And these are shots. You can move to the next slide, Lauren. Thank you. These are shots of the applications that gives you, in complement to the carbon tracker, many other things you can do. There's a list of recommended action to be taken as well. So you can do that in the discomfort of your home for just a few hours a summer year, and that is how to access this application is you have this QR code on the left, you point your iPhone to it, and you download the app and you follow the instructions. It connects you, you connect that application to your account, the Con Ed account only at this point of time, and then you just wait for text message, we call them push notice, and you'll see, when you have to do these things, generally 21 hours or 2 hours in advance, depending on the type of events that we are handling. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michelle. So just to clarify for people, as we're just throwing at you all these different ideas and concepts, certainly taking steps to have a home energy assessment is worthwhile, thinking about replacing your heating and cooling, but with grid rewards and the program you're about to hear about, community solar, they really are just easy signups that don't require much additional work. So Claire is here now to talk about community solar.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Lauren. So I manage a program at Sustainable Westchester called Community Solar, which I know some of you have heard of. For those of you that haven't, Community Solar was developed and launched as a program at Sustainable Westchester after a number of years with us trying to provide lower cost solar installations on people's rooftops. And that was great. It was a successful couple of years, but what we realized was that 85 to 90% of the people that were even interested in installing solar panels couldn't, for financing reasons, or they didn't have the right roof on their home for solar panels, or they were a renter and couldn't do it even if they wanted to. Next slide, Lauren. So the Community Solar Program we launched in 2018, and it's a type of solar program that's open to really anyone that doesn't have solar panels on the roof already. Renters, homeowners, condo dwellers, even houses of worship, towns and cities and villages and small businesses, really anyone can join Community Solar and get financial savings each and every month with no cost to join the program and the flexibility to leave. So how does that work? That sounds great. So with Community Solar, there is a large solar farm, usually built on a large rooftop. And once that community solar farm is built on that large rooftop, people subscribe to that community solar farm. And each and every month, as that community solar farm is generating solar power, the people subscribed to the community solar farm are earning solar credits. And I'm happy to go into more detail in the breakout room. But these solar credits that subscribers earn each month through the program reduce their Con Ed bills. And then they end up paying up to 10% less off their total electric bills each month. And like I said, it's a really flexible program. Next slide, please, Lauren. And it's great because it makes community solar and solar energy much more accessible, and the benefits of solar energy much more accessible to a much wider group of us. Go back,
sorry.
Lauren. No problem. So as I mentioned, you're saving up to 10% off your electricity bills each and every month. You're supporting local renewable energy because these community solar farms are located nearby. Sometimes just a town over, sometimes it's right in town. It
Are
depends
there
where
any
you
in
are.
town?
Well, actually soon enough there will be at Mary Knoll, if any of you are familiar with it. But yeah, soon enough, very, very close now. And yeah, again, there's no solar installation on your property because it's a solar farm locally, but not on your roof. There's no cost to join, no cost to cancel. It's compatible with any energy supplier. So if you have Con Ed or Westchester Power or a third-party energy supplier, community solar is totally compatible with it. No need to change your energy supplier. Next slide, please. And just to go over a quick example, again, I'm happy to talk more in the breakout room. Let's say your Con Ed bill is $115, and that month you've earned a solar credit of $100 from the solar farm, meaning the farm generated $100 of solar energy on your behalf that month. So that lowers your Con Ed bill to $15. You pay Con Ed $15, and then you will pay the solar farm for the solar credit, but you always get a 10% discount on the solar credit. So in this example, you save $10 because your solar credit was $100, you save $10. And so every month you'll earn your solar credit, it'll lower your electricity bill, and you get a 10% discount. Next slide, please. And community solar is a really great program for the individuals that sign up, but also it's led to an explosion in solar development across Westchester County. In our program alone, it's at least tripled the pace of solar development in Westchester. And it's a really exciting program for that reason, just bringing solar power and energy production closer to home, but it's not just any power production, it's clean, renewable power production. And that's only been possible through the 1,600 people that are currently enrolled in the program and are seeing benefits from the program. It's not, it really is called community solar because it takes a collective effort from everyone joining, and each and every person is not only saving, but they're going a long way as individuals to make Westchester a New York State and their community greener. So just in closing, each and every one of you can make a difference by signing up to the program, and you can do it by going to our website, sustainablewestchester.org/solar, or email me or give me a call. And if you have questions, come chat with me in the breakout room. Thanks so much.